Would you go to heaven if it was full of Mormons? This is Systematic Geekology. We are the Priests of the Geeks talking about Mormonism and fandoms as part of our series on the different religions and denominations and stuff of that, that happen to come across in our fandoms. I'm your host today, Christian Ashley, joined by my co-host, Joshua Noel. How's it going, Joshua?
What's up? What's up?
All right. What have you been geeking out on, man?
I have been hyper fixating on a new podcast that Amazon Ministries is doing that's music related. And by doing that,
Yes.
I keep I'm like, oh wait, this song, and then I just start binging random artists that I love. So I've actually been geeking out on music for a change. It's been kind of fun. Nice. Sometimes I need to do that instead of just listening to podcasts all day.
My favorite part of this, other than the fact that this is another insight into your brain and how you work and hyperfixate on things, is that when I said I was going to be re-listening to Jesus Freak, you assumed there was a band named Jesus Freak that I was re-listening to?
No,
and
I
not
know what
DC
Jesus
Talks,
Freaks is.
Not the way you worded it.
I just, I meant like one of the songs from that album that DC Talk did. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
I like Kevin Smart. Or Kevin Max? Is that his name? What's his name?
Goodness gracious, Kevin Max.
I like him, it turns out.
You're
his newest album.
Failure in my eyes. So, I've been geeking out on this currently airing anime, one that Peng and I would definitely do well to talk about later on. It's Aya Sometimes Hides Her Feelings in Russian. The girl who's half Japanese, half Russian, and when this guy she likes says something, she speaks in Russian, the things she wants to say in Japanese, not knowing that he understands Russian. So it's a very fun little rom-com.
Nice. Very nice.
Well, what do you say we get into some Mormonism, buddy?
Well, yeah. Go ahead. I'm trying to write our banners while you talk. It's fine.
Well, I can continue doing that. That's fine. So, Joshua, what is Mormonism? And you clearly have some interesting words underneath your name there that I vehemently disagree with.
We definitely disagree with each other. My brain's not full go. Yeah, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a sect of Christianity that adds some stuff that might be a little how does South Park put it? Not smart. I have a lot of friends, so I'm trying to be respectful of it, even though I do think some of it's a little far-fetched. But I also understand, just like me, they believe that Jesus Christ died and rose again for their sins, that he was God. So I still consider that Christian. But they also believe that a guy named Joseph Smith found golden tablets in America, that Jesus visited America after his death and resurrection, just to say what's up to some of the other tribes. Yeah, there was a 13th tribe of Israel that made it over here. I'm trying to think of what else. There's just a lot that's hard to get my mind around. But mostly, what's weird, a lot of the stuff that I know about it is more of like the myths, because I've heard so many people ask stuff, and since I have friends, I get to talk to them. I'm like, do you guys really believe that aliens did this? And they're like, aliens literally have nothing to do with our beliefs. And I'm like, okay, cool, good to know.
There is a lot of misperception about Mormonism. In fact, one of our stories today is part of that, but we're not going there just yet.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have friends, obviously Mormon. How were you introduced to Mormonism, though, as a concept?
See, I think it's difficult. I'm not sure what came first. If my church started warning us about people who will come and knock on your door and what verses you need to read them first, or if there was a girl I dated in high school who had friends that were part of, who lived on the Native American Reserve here in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And for some reason in that reserve, there's like 2 or 3 houses that just house a ton of missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, I sat in a few of their Bible studies and talked to them and asked them questions. And as everyone gets slightly frustrated when I ask my, what was we call it, the Uno reverse question cards, that's when I quickly learned I could not believe what they believe, because they just me not being prepared to attack them or anything. Just asking the kinds of questions that Josh asks. They're not prepared for.
Yes. Now, me, I don't remember the first time I heard the word Mormon, but a friend of mine growing up was a Mormon, and his younger brother, who I'm way closer to, was a Mormon as well until he left the church behind, started attending my church, and just after he realized it was incompatible with Scripture, everything that came after that, he decided, nope, can't do that. Got baptized, all that good mess. So there's that.
I also two other ones. We also went to college with a guy in our dorm because I think you were in the same dorm as me for a little while. In Schwartz, were you in that dorm?
No, I was
Oh, well,
Cornerstone.
on my floor, there was also a guy who was still a missionary, but he was like on leave to go to college. So I had
Ah,
some fun
okay.
talks with him too. Got to learn some from him and kind of like just how every sect of Christianity has their apologetics. And sometimes, in my personal opinion, I think every sect of Christianity defends some crazy stuff. If you dig close enough into like what I believe, there's probably some crazy stuff that I defend that you're like, wait, you really believe that? Are you sure about that? you know. Um, and then we also TJ and I both worked with someone who was a part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints when we worked in Chipotle in Pineville, and we actually met her and her family at their home. Really nice people, and even did a podcast with them on the Whole Church podcast and asked them a bunch
Very
of
early
questions.
on.
Yeah, the audio is garbage, but it was a really interesting conversation, especially because we had a bunch of questions we got from people that are like, "Do you really believe?" And most of them are like, "No, no, we do not." I think my favorite was someone was like, you have to ask if they believe that the Godhead is co-equal. That'll really throw them. They'll hate that question. And they're like, what do you mean by that? We're like, well, are they, the same? Are they all God? And they're like, well, yeah. And we're like, didn't seem like that stumped them that much.
Well, of course, in any conversation around this, we've got to start off with South Park. And this is one of those episodes, all about Mormons, is what I believe the episode title is, where a
Good
new
stuff.
kid is introduced to class. I think his name is Gary, and Stan befriends him. Everyone else wants him to bully him because boys of not being boys in the sense of good things, but being boys in the sense of letting their baser instincts take control of them. But Stan finds that he can't because he's just so nice. Then he meets the rest of his family, and they're just so nice. And he starts telling him about this man called Joseph Smith and how he discovered these tablets, and that's formed the basis of their, religion today. And I believe even earlier in South Park, we have the episode where when Satan goes to heaven, the only people there are Mormons because Mormonism is the one true faith in the South Park universe. So, Joshua, how is Mormonism portrayed in the show? Oh,
I really didn't think you were going to stop right there. I was in the middle of typing something.
I'm sorry.
Um, Poorly. It is really just the butt of a joke, and I don't think they say anything wrong. So when I say poorly, I don't mean inaccurate. I just mean like I feel like they are unfairly mean to this
Really?
group.
I think they're too nice.
Really, that's so interesting
Yes.
because they just straight up call it dumb, and I'm like, that's okay. Just people can believe different and it not be dumb. Like we all believe some stuff that's out there. I
Mm,
mean, I don't know. Personally, I feel like dumb's a little harsh.
okay. Yeah, I think that they were a bit too nice. Not say they're out of character nice, because they do show, hey, these people have something, a system in their lives that makes them want to act this way, that makes them want to be a stable family, that makes them want to look after one another. And that is great until you start getting into why they do what they do. And that's where I think they went a little too easy. And that kind of goes in to the next question that I have, which at the end of the episode, the kind of the general Aesop is that it doesn't matter what you believe or what someone else believes. so long as they're just nice. What do you think about that as an idea for, is it right, this idea?
Mm, no asterisk. Am I allowed to put an asterisk on no?
Yes, it is your answer, Joshua.
I struggle here. So
Okay.
first off, let's just say this episode is hilarious because they literally tell the story, and I just want to say the one bit when they call it dumb, is still funny. Even if I think it's harsh, it is hilarious. Because at first you
Okay.
don't really notice. Like he's just going around and there's little music going da 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 da. But if you pay attention, it's not going da 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 da. It's going dum 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 dum. And near the end, it becomes very very pronounced, where you could tell they're literally going dum 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 dum. This is dumb. And that is just funny.
Yes.
If it were my own faith and it was like people who believe this dead guy rose into the sky and he's going to come back and judge people one day, and they were doing that story with dum 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 dum, I would still laugh. Like that's just
Yeah.
funny.
And they've pretty much done that without the dum 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 dums for Christianity in multiple denominations over the
Oh
show.
yeah. Yeah, they do make fun of
And
everything.
it's hilarious.
But this was really targeted, and I don't know. I still struggle with that. But
Okay.
as far as is niceness enough? No, like nice is just a weird like ultimate virtue. That's what I don't understand about this, I guess. As someone who is universalist, off universalist, I'm like, I don't believe in a hell. I do think God's going to bring everyone into himself eventually. I also feel like, I don't necessarily have to like specifically say Jesus' name correctly 3 times to go to heaven or anything like that. Like I'm like, I think there are not other ways. I'm trying to word this right. I think what is of ultimate, what the divine is love. So in my mind, if you're going to be pursuing what is ultimate, you are pursuing love, not niceness. So that's where I'm like, that's just weird. And what's funny is, from what I know, the people I know who are of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would probably also agree. They would be like, niceness is not the ultimate value. They're glad you think they're nice, but that's not their ultimate value either. So they would not agree with that assessment either.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is total bull. This is where
I knew
this
it.
is where the episode breaks apart for me. This is, up until it's like, yeah, they're making fun of them, but also like treating them fairly. I think for the most part, they're showing a stable family. They're showing people who genuinely love each other and trying to introduce that to other people. And they kind of offset that with, Randy being an easy convert just for the sake of wanting things instead of like actually understanding what he's getting into, as is per normal for him. But then you get to the Aesop at the end, and I go, I disagree completely and utterly with everything you just said there. Like, look, yeah, I want people to be nice, but that's not good enough. That's not enough. And as someone who is most definitely not a universalist, who believes in far more absolutes than Joshua will ever want to believe in, because I am also a Sith, I can't get behind this idea because it's antithetical to everything I understand of Scripture. Because if being nice enough was good enough, what's the point?
I'm just saying, I think Lucifer would be fine if being nice enough was good enough.
I think Job might say something different than that.
That wasn't Lucifer though. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's a whole different debate for another time.
Yes.
It's just, I don't know, it's annoying. But thinking of it outside of like religion and what is the ultimate and divine and what should humans be living for, even just thinking about like in polite society, niceness still isn't enough. You know what I mean? Like if someone is running for president, I'm like, well, they're nice. That's nope. Or, if I'm going to be friends with someone, being nice is not the only criteria. If I'm going to want a pastor, someone to take advice from, niceness isn't good. I can't think of a single person in my life that I'm like, oh, niceness is, that's not true. If you're just a customer going through the restaurant I work at and all you are is nice, actually, no, not even that. Because if you don't have money, I still would rather you not come in. Like
Trying to sweet talk a free meal.
Yeah, like I've even tried to I'm trying to find a thing in my own argument. I'm like, yeah, no, there just isn't anything where niceness is enough. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm with you. We can call bull on that.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, you say we head over to the call real quick. And I mean
Yeah.
real quick because there's next to nothing on them.
I think there's two sentences that are really interesting.
Yeah,
We're
we read the
gonna
same wiki entry.
discuss.
So, yeah,
Oh
go ahead.
man. Marvel's The Called. It's basically nothing except it's not. It's a really cool idea that they just didn't capitalize on good enough, in my opinion.
Yes.
So, in comic book world, Marvel Civil War happened. Iron Man, Captain America fought because of reasons. Cap won, but also lost because of reasons.
Yes.
And
Because the story
now,
needed them to lose.
yeah. So even though he won, he lost. Just cause. But
Yes.
that's a different argument for another day. But ultimately, superheroes are now have to be registered. You have to be a registered, superpowered person if you want to be a superhero. Otherwise, you're going to go into, I don't know, Tony created his own version of hell to send you to for some reason, and that makes him a good
Negative
guy.
zone prison.
Yeah, not sure why. This makes Tony Stark a good guy because he can send you to a dimension that's totally not hell. Anyway,
No, that would be limbo.
him and Reed Richards are
But I get
great,
what you're saying.
great people, great humans. Sorry, I don't like either of them, but
Okay.
Reed Richards I'm a little bit more lenient to, but only barely.
I know. You've been burned and you can't forgive. And that's why you haven't taken communion since 2006 when this was released.
Anyway, so after
Sorry.
all that, because superhumans have to be registered, they started an initiative in all 50 states where they're going to have their own, basically, the state-issued Avengers kind of team. New York
Yes.
obviously gets the real Avengers, but you other states, you can have your own teams
Yeah.
now, which I think is a really cool idea. I wish they would have capitalized on
Absolutely.
it, and we could have seen some follow-up on these because it's a seriously cool idea. The South Carolina Avenger team, I want to know what that's like. We definitely had our, like, we wouldn't have had Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl would have been like
No.
Northwestern, but we could have had something like that. Raccoon Lad,
Yeah,
I don't know.
we had the UFOs in North Carolina until
water
eventually
bug.
it was Butterball and Batwing. That was who was
Oh.
representing North Carolina.
Lame.
Sure. Yeah. But go ahead. Keep going.
But Utah gets The Called, which we have almost nothing about. We know very little about, other than there was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. who was appointed to lead a team. He called it The Called. They were all members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormons,
Yes.
because that's shorter to say. But there is, and this is what's fascinating, you could do a little bit of research if you want to. There's a television show about The Called, but it's only on BYU TV. So yes, the college has its own television channel that shows The Called, where you can learn about the Mormon Marvel superhero team. But in the show, it's in the MCU. So I'm really unsure about the canonicity of all of this.
No, I knew nothing about this. Hold on.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets fun for me. So in the show, and I found like clips here and there, but I can't find like the full show, which is why we won't talk too much about this, but it's so interesting. That S.H.I.E.L.D. guy, you find out he was at one point, he was a Mormon missionary. He goes off to the military, he comes back, he joins S.H.I.E.L.D., then he ends up being appointed this team. Most of the team are really not that interesting to me. They all just happen to be parts of the church, except for, I think the guy's name was Bishop because he used to be a bishop in the church. And
Okay.
he's like full on assassin, like Punisher style with a really cool all white suit. And I'm like, why can't I actually just find this show? Because I am actually really intrigued. Because, even though it's not my sect of Christianity by any means, I would be really interested to see a bunch of people who are, because one thing in my opinion that the Mormons do really well is they actually live out what they say they believe. Like if someone is a Mormon, they're not going to be like, oh, well, I can cheat today. I'll have a little bit of caffeine. Nope, it's not happening. Like Like they hold to it. So I think it would have been really interesting to see people who are truly holding to their faith, trying to live out what it means to be Christian or Mormon in the Marvel universe while capturing bad guys doing superhero stuff. Like that show's got to be pretty interesting. But it
Yeah,
was only one season, so it must not be. Actually, I think it might have been 4 or 5 seasons. I forget. There was multiple seasons. Now that I remember, I only saw.
multiple seasons.
I could only read about one season. That's what it was.
Uh,
Yeah.
Are we
let me
having a
find this.
Mandela effect here? Th- th- there's no way. I haven't
gonna-
heard of this. Yeah. Anyways.
Okay,
Yeah.
wait. I'm
Going back.
pulling it up. How many seasons are there here?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now I just need to know.
live
Okay.
research.
4 seasons.
There's no way. What was the budget? $10,000 an episode?
It could not have been much. It had to be a low budget.
Wow.
But yeah, Utah Mormon superheroes in Marvel, sort of. Sort of the
Yeah.
MCU, maybe.
Yeah, an idea like this is something that was begging to have like a mini series or something in comic form. I would have liked to have seen. Like, I loved Avengers: The Initiative, the comic run. It's like one of the few good things Slott has written consistently. His Spider-Man run, on the other hand, that's another thing. But when it comes to the idea of like, yes, every state having a superhero team, sign me up. And Utah, of course, yeah. The what's the word I'm looking at? Gracious, why can I not think today?
Church state?
No, okay, whatever. Uh, of course, there'd be Mormons there being the super team. It makes sense for that.
Oh,
The
do you wanna
stereotype
know-
would be for it to be Mormons.
Do you want to know who the first villains they face are?
Oh my gosh, go ahead.
The Darkholders.
As
The
in
Keepers of the Darkhold. Yeah.
the dark hole.
Yeah. like to be able to watch this show in its like fullness would be great.
Yeah.
Like I would truly
it-
love that.
And you're telling me this wasn't an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spinoff that was only on BYU's campus or something like that?
It's just BYU TV. And it takes place after the events of Captain America Civil War in the MCU.
Okay, where were they at in Endgame? Ungrateful little Mormons?
That would have been a great, like, that would have been one of those cameos that, like, 2 people got. Like, oh, we know them. It would have been great. Oh, all right, sorry. That's
Okay.
all I got for this. I will say,
Okay.
fascinating concept. I wish more comics and superhero teams were, like, actually representative of people's faiths. We have a little bit of it with, like, Kamala Khan, Daredevil, but for the most part,
No.
you just don't get a lot of it. So I wish we saw more. I thought it would be cool. Also, yeah, state-issued heroes. Cool concept.
Okay, Joshua, I want you to know something. You were reading this off of the MCU Fanon wiki. Fan fiction. That wasn't. It looks like that's not real.
I don't know. I saw some
A
clips
wiki
of
for
it
making
somewhere,
your
though.
own characters, making your own show.
But it aired
Yeah.
on BYU TV.
That's what they say it did, as part of the fictional article they made for the wiki.
Further research. I
Yeah,
could have
okay.
sworn I saw clips of this, but that might have also been fan made because that's a thing. People do
Yes.
that.
Anyways, moving on to our next subject. A study in Scarlett. The first Sherlock Holmes appearance and novel. We have Mormons in there, and these Mormons are your more in early Marvel's 60s. There'd always be an issue for regardless of who the superhero was, where there was some dirty commies in there that just had to be defeated by our heroes. Sherlock Holmes' first villains he faces off against, in a sense, are the Danites, which are a real kind of a spin-off of the Mormon faith that didn't last that long, if I remember correctly. But he has them as unrepentant killers. They're all evil people just scheming about ways they can murder and force people to marry them. And that's kind of what happens in the first Sherlock Holmes story, is this idea of this evil cultish group coming in enforcing their values on other people, going across the pond, which there were Mormon missionaries in England at this time, because that's a huge part of what they do. And Holmes, living in an age where you don't have access to an internet that can correct misinformation, like just what happened earlier, started making up ideas based on what he knew of the Mormon faith. So, Joshua, my question for you, number one, have you read this?
I'm pretty sure I heard the audiobook of this, but it would have been a
Okay.
long time ago.
But number two, how does misinformation affect the public's relationship to religion? Because this is like, look, all my feelings on Mormonism aside, I don't think they're all psychotic killers and rapists who are going to destroy the entire world because of they're just inherently evil. Like, go ahead.
I feel like it's hard for us to talk about because we're like the mainstream religion kind of people. But you definitely do see, especially in like Islamic communities, people are treated very poorly because Islamic people are just thought of as terrorists because you hear about one side of the religion and not all of it. You don't hear about the peaceful people, you hear about the bad people. I think the same probably true outside of Christianity. You know, people only hear about the people who yell, "We hate the gays," and bomb abortion clinics. They don't see normal Christians most of the time, unless you're like within the circles. So I think it prevents challenges to share, just the same as any other group. You know, Marvel fans, it was really hard to explain that, like, oh no, you can actually be a fan without being like the world's biggest geek, and you can like Star Wars without thinking that there's a black and white universe. You can like, you know, like there's a lot of assumptions about different fandoms, about different cultures, people who like different things, you know, because people know I like watching college football. They assume that I'm a certain kind of person sometimes, which I'm clearly not because I'm on this podcast. So, you know, assumptions are bad. Bad information makes assumptions hard. Also, it looks like this was a fan fiction, The Called, but it was actually put on BYU TV because stuff that people who attend BYU made was put on the. That's all it was.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was like a self-produced thing.
Interesting.
Sad. And I think there just wasn't actually that many seasons. I think there was just probably a few episodes, but still.
Yes. So, my reason for asking this question, other than the fact that they're horribly misrepresented in the first Sherlock Holmes story, is because it happens all the time with Christianity in general. I mean, there's a trope called Christianity is Catholic. And that's because most of the time when you're looking at a movie, they're assuming, there's going to be a priest. They're assuming you're going to go to mass or something like that. And that's just a result of screenwriters not knowing enough about Christianity. But there's also, I mean, like I love Kingsman, but the only church in that movie is essentially Westboro Baptist Church. And the assumption made there is that, well, yeah, it's about Westboro Baptist Church, but you really know the rest of them are like this too. So it's okay when they're slaughtered like this. And yeah, I enjoy that scene. It's the best scene in the movie, in my opinion. But it's when things like that keep happening that misrepresent it that causes people to go, well, obviously it's true because they just told me it was.
Yeah, well, also people don't like to think deeply. We like to others, and we like to just kind of categorize things. And you know, it's easy for us to see within our own faith, especially because we work so closely with people who think differently. It's easy for us to know not every Christian loves the gays, or not every Christian thinks that, you know, people who engage in same-sex marriage are going to hell. You know, it's not every Christian thinks it's okay to drink. Not every Christian thinks it's not okay to drink. You know, like not every Christian believes in hell or doesn't believe in hell. Like there's just because we run the gambit in our own show of people we work with, it's easy for us to see it.
Yeah.
But even a lot of other Christians just assume that all Christians are like them because they're not willing to have these conversations outside of their own box. And yeah, assumptions lead people to believe a lot of things that aren't true, which keeps us from having nice, nuanced conversations that allow us all to challenge each other and grow. And something about something sharpens something. Yeah.
Okay. What do you say we go to our final topic for today?
You just let me buy with something sharpens something?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I know you're pressed for time.
Perfect.
And we're going to be talking about Fallout New Vegas. This is specifically a part of the DLC, The Honest Hearts, where we had heard in the original game there was this figure known as Joshua Graham, also known as the Burning Man, who was once part of Caesar's Legion. Who, if you don't know the games, they're essentially a bunch of Roman weeaboos. Excuse me, uh, tribal people who become Roman weeaboos because they're trying to bring order in the image of their Caesar or Kaiser, if you're going to pronounce it correctly, across the wasteland. He loses the battle over Hoover Dam. Caesar takes him, I think, puts pitch and stuff on him, sets him on fire, and throws him off into a canyon. And he lives. And like
Well,
it's a
damn.
huge, he's a huge boogeyman to Caesar's Legion because
Huh.
you're supposed to die from that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So he grew up in a region of Utah that, after the nuclear bombs had fallen and people tried to remake society, was a Mormon-based civilization called New Canaan, and they maintain a lot of Mormon beliefs. There's a little bit of syncretism over time, but to be expected after the bombs fall and everything. You don't have all the information readily available. And part of that syncretism is that every boy has grown up to use this specific kind of pistol. I think with like 45 auto or something like that. And so they send missionaries out, but they're also strapped. So they expect everyone to do that 2-year mission, so on and so forth, but also to protect yourself. They get contacted by Caesar's Legion. He joins them to kind of like protect them for a little bit. Then when he fails, comes back, he comes back into the fold, and they forgive him for everything that he's done.
Wow.
But because Caesar knows that he's there, he sacks the city while Joshua Graham is gone. While the men are gone, kills the women and children because he knows that's what they put a lot of their hope and faith in, is that they're going to continue on through family. So he
Love it.
now in the present is working with a tribe elsewhere to try and toughen them up against another tribe that Caesar's Legion is kind of supplying on the other side. But his whole focus is revenge. So Joshua, now that I've explained everything there, what's the difference between revenge and vengeance?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure there is one, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So God's being revengeful whenever he's vengeful.
Yes.
Okay.
Usually, it does seem like that way.
Mm.
Maybe not.
That
I'm interested to
doesn't
hear
really
your
sound
take.
like him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a
No.
lot of stuff in the Bible that doesn't quite sound like God, but that's why you don't believe everything.
Oh, okay. That's why you're wrong.
No, I just wanted to get
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah. I
from
know.
you. You know.
I know.
But what do you think's the difference?
I mean, who's doing it and for what purpose?
I'd
If
also be
it's
interested in the Hebrew words. There might be more of a nuance in Hebrew.
That's probably a good idea. Definitely should
Yeah,
have looked that up. Don't have
I'm
it on
sure.
me. But revenge is you slight me, then I take it out on you or the people you know, just because I feel slighted. Vengeance is, oh, they slaughtered these people. That they're going to continue doing this. Let's work together, make sure it doesn't happen again, so that we
Got it.
can save people. One preserves life. The other is about personal pride.
My thought is revenge versus avenge. I think
Mhm.
it's more of a like a tit for tat versus are you doing it for others? So like if Christian punched me and I punched him back, I got my revenge. But I think if
Yes.
you punched a bunch of little children, so I went and beat you up, I avenged the little children.
Yes.
So I think the difference might be for who you are doing it, maybe.
Yes. It's
For
God
sure.
punishing Egypt for the slavery of the Israelites,
Yeah,
and
not
that
because they did
being a
anything to
systemic
him.
part. Yeah, a systemic part of what their system was around oppressing them.
Yeah, it checks out. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I want to do a shout out to one other thing. I
Go
don't
for
know
it.
anything about it other than it exists. Because it's self-made, so I would have to pay a website that I don't know to read it, and I'm just not willing to do that. But Salt City Strangers, another superhero team that's all Mormons, but this is indie written, indie produced. But I like supporting individual, people trying to make their own stuff. So I don't
Okay.
know. I might get it eventually. You guys should
So,
check it out if you have extra money and time.
so
One
without
last
reading
question
it
for Christian.
yourself for content, you've decided I'm going to endorse it.
Yes. Listen, I also misunderstood a fanfic page today. Listen, I am on my A game, and no one can
I thought
deny
I
it.
had switched into an alternate universe for a bit because there's no way I didn't know that existed.
But the called does exist in Marvel Comics for like three
Yes.
sentences, two sentences,
Yes.
something like that. Um, I do want to ask you before we go, because we disagreed about something that I feel like we could expand on a little bit here at the end. What's the difference between a cult and a religion?
Cults inherently harm the people within them. They separate you from people. There are different definitions of cults. These are not all cults have every single one of these things I'm about to list. So that's for other people to decide. And I'm not going to remember everything on that list. Separation from other people, dependence on one leader, um, giving away everything you have in support of that community instead of doing it of your own free will that's expected of you. And there's some more I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but it's the idea, and it's also based off of faulty doctrine that has nothing to do with what came before and the hopes of elevating other people and not the people worshiping.
See, I wouldn't include that, but that's just because how do you know what faulty doctrine is? We could always be wrong.
Uh,
It's always possible that the Mormons were right this whole time.
uh, Not with the inerrant truth of Scripture, and not because we don't live in a South Park universe.
If you believe in inerrancy, but inerrancy could also be wrong.
Inerrancy believes in you.
I'm hoping inerrancy is wrong. No, I see. I think I would agree with most of that. Not the doctrine part. I do think typically there's one leader it's around, that it's something that isolates people from others. Um, it's also considered a cult because it is different than the mainstream thing that it's breaking off from, and because it's usually because it's dangerous. So the reason I don't think this is a cult, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is A, it's not dangerous, clearly. In my opinion, it's pretty clear. People have been fine with it for a pretty long time now. B, it's been around long enough that it's not really new. It's not like a weird thing. It's just a normal thing at this point. C, I think Christianity started off as a cult too. We were a bunch of weirdos breaking off from the mainstream Judaism faith, following one crazy person named Jesus. And then after some time, it became its own full religion, and people understood that, like, okay, this is actually its own thing that we have to respect, even if we disagree with it. And that's kind of where I am with it. I disagree with a lot of it, but I'm like, I don't think it's dangerous. I don't think they're following a single person anymore because that person isn't around. It seems okay. Maybe wrong. I think wrong, but I'm open to being the one that's wrong too. So that's just where I'm at.
Okay. Well, that's where we're going to disagree once more. But I also want to respect your time, so I'll just simply say, can't really be a cult breaking off. It's just a continuation of what came before and a fulfillment of prophecy.
I mean, that's what they would say too.
Yeah, but it's not. There's no historical background or prophetic background for anything they say.
A little
There's
bit.
no foreshadowing.
I would agree, but I could see where they're coming from too. But also, you can make the same arguments about Christianity. Like you
Yeah,
can.
poorly.
Depends who you're talking to. But that's where I might disagree. Because I'm just like, I see where you're coming from. Even if you want to say continuation, I still think a continuation that is different from the mainstream views. There wasn't a mainstream view in Judaism that there was going to be a Messiah. That wasn't a main view at that point. That was mostly a new thing. And then we decided who the Messiah was pretty much out of nowhere. But, in my opinion, because it really was the Messiah and it did come out of nowhere. But if you're just looking at it externally, yeah, that would be a cult.
Excellent question, Matthew.
That's he's teasing a whole different episode, and we're not doing that right now. But also, that Jesus is not their Jesus. Really isn't any different, in my opinion, either. But that's fine.
That's why you're known with Joshua with the bad opinions.
Well, they also believe in the New Testament and the Bible. They read the Bible.
But then they add the scripture, which
Yeah,
shouldn't
but
exist.
so everything that you believe about Jesus from the New Testament, they also believe about Jesus. So
Well, that's great.
there's that.
But then they add on to it. It's Jesus plus nothing, man.
I'm with you. I'm just saying, it's not a different Jesus at that point.
Mm,
Okay. Anyway, let's wrap this up.
I've read the Book of Mormon. There's a
Me
different
too.
Jesus
I
there.
got one on my shelf. It is not a different. I disagree, but that's fine.
Okay. Recommendations before we descend into madness.
Read the Book of Mormon and watch the play.
No. I agree with both of those.
Yeah.
There's plenty to glean from both. One is obviously a more satirical take, but the Book of Mormon is a very interesting book, one I vehemently disagree with, but it's still worth checking out because there's millions of people who believe in it. So if you wanted to challenge your faith, do that. But
Yeah.
to go on a completely different way, I'm just going to say we mentioned earlier South Park, but just a Scientology episode this time around because it's a similar thing. It's a lot of fun. I think Joshua just had to leave. So, guys, thank you very much for all that you do here. Please get a chance. Just leave a like, subscribe as well to the channel, leave a comment down below. Thank you for everything that you have done for us. We really appreciate. Also, as well, we want to shout out our patrons and supporters. Ethan Overcash, Austin Nance, Amber Riley, and Jonathan Augustine. Guys, you're the best. But remember, we're all the chosen people, a geekdom of priests.